Hey, Patrick.
Hey, how you doing, Michael J?
I'm doing good. About to see the big show, the big game.
Yeah, the Pro Tour for Hour of Devastation is definitely shaping up to be an interesting one, given the evolution of the standard format so far.
Yeah, this ep is going to go up, and then just a few hours later, there's going to be, hours of promise, hours of devastation, hours of God knows.
Well, sort of. It's going to be a real tight fit, right? Like, actually, because of like how far ahead Japan is in time zones. Round one of the Pro Tour actually starts Thursday from our perspective, right?
Ah, well, yeah. So we're just going to be bumping up right up against it then.
Yeah, because I think they're actually 13 hours ahead of East Coast time. So that would make round. Now we're not going to see the constructed decks yet. Obviously the morning starts off with a draft, but round one of the Pro Tour, not even round one, the player meeting not even player meeting. You know what I mean? Just like sit down to get ready to draft. The draft is going to start at 7. I'm sorry, at 10. No, I guess it's 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Thursday night.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, Eastern Standard Time, which means that we should be getting constructed decks just a little, first news anyway of the constructed decks just around midnight, a little after midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, so the top level podcasts will be intermingled with the Pro Tour constructed results at the same time. They'll be swimming into each other. A weave of magic and mana, if ever there was one.
Yep. So it does mean, though, that we're going to have to be accurate with our predictions.
Yeah, super on point.
Right, or else we're going to look rather silly.
But yeah, because it's going to be halfway in the past. All right, so there were a couple of events, a couple of heroes coming out this past weekend. And, I mean, can we start with the team event? The Star City event. I think it was in Cincinnati, Atlanta, something like that.
Well, so we can start with the event, but I actually think a better way to put it is that we should start with a deck.
Oh, yeah.
Given that it won the team event, came in second in the team event, also top 8 at the team event, also won the SCG Classic.
Yeah.
This was definitely the deck of the weekend, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was something else. You're speaking, of course, of mono red aggro, perhaps the version played by Tom the Boss Ross.
Yeah, Tom Ross. I mean, they're all the same. But yeah, Tom Ross played a different sort of mono red aggro than we talked about last week.
Yeah, so
this is a much more traditional, but with a couple twists.
Yeah, so it's got less land, and it's just... Last week we were talking about the division.
Less land. This is a lot of land for Tom Ross.
Well, I mean, less land than the red deck we saw last week is what I'm saying. Last week we were talking about the division of like reality smashers and glory bringers. That's just not even a thing on the table this week. So
he's got Eldrazi.
Not those.
He's got one Eldrazi obligator in the sideboard.
So Tom played a 23 land mono red deck. 11 mountains, 3 foreboding ruins, 4 Ramanap ruins, a smoldering marsh, 4 sun-scorched desert. So he had, deserts going on, as well as some blacklands. But his deck is like a low to the ground, heavy on the haste, just aggro deck. So he's got Bomac Courier, the black splashes to help him rebuy Scrap Heap Scrounger. Go ahead.
I just wanted to note, this might on the surface look like a red deck wins, but in its heart, this, in my humble opinion, is without question a white aggro deck.
It's like a white weenie deck. I agree. Yeah, it's almost Stompy-ish actually, even though it's a little wide for a Stompy deck.
The reason I would say that it's much more like a white aggro deck is because it's got 7 removal spells, 8 guys to get rid of blockers, and then 4 pump spells.
But it's got 4 built to smash. That's the thing. That feels very stompy to me. But I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because white aggro would play it too, just like Stompy, the giant growths.
Yeah.
Like if you had a Wax and Wane, you ask Kai. If you ask Kai, he'll tell you.
Oh yeah, his mono white deck +2/+2 in combat many a time, I think. So we've got Bowmat Courier, haste, On Crop Crasher, haste, Earthshaker Kenra, haste, Falcon Wrath Gorger, no haste, Hazoret the Fervent, haste. There's just like mad haste in this deck. 24 creatures starting on 1s, Soulscar Mage and Bowmat Courier on the 1. Little power from Chandra Torch of Defiance, but this is just... I mean, this deck puts the aggro in red aggro.
So, here's what you're going to love. I figured it out. It's not white aggro, and it's not Stompy. And I think you're going to, without question, agree with me.
Okay.
This is Sly. Look at the mana curve, man. It has the literal original mana. It has all the way. It has the actual Sly mana curve that Jay Schneider developed way back in the mid 90s, early 90s. So he's got 10 1-drops, 9 2-drops, 4 3-drops, and then 3 4-drops. And now the original curve had like a range. It was like you can play 9 to 11 1-drops, and you can play either 9 or 10 2-drop. Like here, it's like literally in the original range, including the weird numbers, like 2 Soulscar Mage, so that you get the 1-drop you need.
Oh my goodness, Patrick!
1 Kari Zev, so that you get the 2-drop you need.
It's like Patrick Chapin in the top 8 of the Dallas Juniors.
Dude, Dragon Whelp or Chandra Torch of Defiance, either one will do.
Dragon Whelp.
And then instead of Pillage, he's got a Braid. Dude, a Braid is so good.
Agreed on a Braid. So this is just, I think you're right. I think this is just Sly.
Sun-Scorched Desert and Ramen Up Ruins instead of Mishra's Factory and Strip Mine.
Somebody call Adrian Sullivan. The true Sly has returned.
Oh,
so, yeah, this deck is... It's so different than the mono red deck from last week. Here's a question, Patrick. Serious question. Handware Garrison in the sideboard of this deck. There are several Handware Garrisons in the various versions of this archetype this past weekend. Why is it that these decks are going Sun-Scorched Desert for their colorless? Why not put together a little combo with the Handware Garrison instead?
Dude, first of all, Sun-Scorched Desert's just better anyway. It does a damage to your opponent.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, it does 2 more damage to your opponent when you have Ramen Up Ruins.
Yeah, but like hasting people and then transforming a Handware Garrison, those are powerful.
That's not what it's about.
No one does that.
I mean, you can do it. Some people do, but not very much. That's just not the thing. That's not what it needs to be about. Like that's just not, like, you can do that, but when you have Handware Garrison in the matchups where you're bringing it in, it's already sweet. It's not that haste is the thing you needed. The whole key to
transformation is the thing that I want.
No, you're just greedy. What you want is to keep making 2/1/1s when you attack. Handware Garrison is this threat that doesn't die to Kozilek's return, you know? It's like, it's a must answer on its own, but it's harder to sweep the same way. I don't know, man. You could do it if you wanted, but Sun-Scorched Desert gets you your 1 damage every time. Like, how many win shares do you get from Sun-Scorched Desert? Right? Like, that's 5% of the objective already. Plus, it makes the mana.
It's a counter squall, right? It does the thing that you want, right? Look, it taps for a mana, but by the way, it counter squalls them. Ding.
It's like cycling lands, only you don't have to lose the land. It's just extra cards. It's like... Ding. You're just getting this extra... dude, it's so good. I know you know.
I know, I get it. I'm just saying I have some greed to me. I mean, I've got a vault. It's in the city of Duckburg. It's full of gold. I like to swim in it.
Okay, so how often are you gonna have Hanwehr? How often are you gonna even board the garrison in?
I don't know. I don't know what matchup it's good in.
Okay, so let's say you board it in half the time, since you don't know. You either do or you don't.
Either you do or you don't.
Hint, it's less. But let's just say you board it in half.
Yeah.
How often are you going to draw a garrison by turn, a Hanwehr garrison by turn 5?
I don't know, 1 in 4 games.
Now, when you have 2?
Yeah.
So are you going to play it on turn 3, or are you going to hold it?
I don't even know which games I'm bringing it in. Hint, it's less than half.
So here's the thing. If you have it in your opener, or you draw it on the first, second, or third, or fourth turn, you're going to play it, and you're not going to give it haste.
True.
Now, if you draw it later, you need how many land are you planning to have in play? And are you just like drawing off the top? How many of the land do you want to put in the deck anyway? 2? 4?
Oh man, 4 would be aggro. It would be aggro.
So, like, let's say that you draw one of your 2 lands that could give it haste. And let's say that you draw this. That together is only happening, by turn, let's see. It's happening between turn 5 and turn, say, 10. Right around, we'll say, I don't know, 2%.
Oh my goodness, that is not a high percentage.
And that's in the matchups where you want it. Half the time, you're not even boarding it in. It's literally 1%. And in that 1%, and it's actually, to be fair, it's slightly more, because really, if you draw them both earlier than that, you might set your game up some amount of the time. But it's not even guaranteed that you're going to hit 5. So even in the 1%, though, where you're doing it, it needs to matter. It needs to have actually been the thing where it wasn't enough to have a sun-scorched desert and a Hanwehr garrison. You needed your Hanwehr garrison to be upgraded and transformed with that land. Like, that's just not the... I don't know. How much is that the deciding factor? Let's say that in the 1% of the time that you actually pull off the combo, at least half the time you needed it to win.
It's still not a dramatic percentage of wins.
0.5%. That's 0.5% win share. It's so bad compared to whenever you draw those sun-scorched ruins, what are the chances that 1 damage matters? Well, I don't know, 5%?
I think more than 5%.
Nah, because you were going to win some anyway, and some games you're just going to lose anyway for sure. Ballpark, I don't know, roughly, it's 5% of the damage.
What's crazy to me is how impressive On-Crop Crasher has become alongside Earthshaker Kenra. Like, I feel like Earthshaker Kenra dragged On-Crop Crasher into, like, the relevancy circle.
I agree with that. I think getting a 2-drop at all is like part of the equation, but there is a cumulative effect, right?
Oh, there's just so much haste here. It's just like buries the opponent in tempo, right? Like,
yeah.
I love his addition of Bomat Courier,
and it's a real creative solution to the problem of. When all the good burn doesn't hit face, all right, fine. Point 4 braid, no face. 3 magma spray, no face. 4 built a smash, no face. Fine. We'll just play no face damage, and instead just focus on removing blockers long enough to finish the job. You know, you don't have to take over. Sometimes you can just take an advantage and win before your opponent can pull ahead from their more powerful collection of cards.
Are you a little surprised that he didn't have like the super high end no. Glorybringer in the sideboard?
No, nope. Everybody in the world is ready for that. Everybody in the world is ready for that. What I think is interesting is with 4 Beaumont Courier and 4 Scrap Heap Scrounger, I can't help but a little bit wonder, is there any chance that Spire of Industry is better than maybe it's just not, because you don't get the black when you actually you need the black when you don't have the Scrounger, so maybe it's the wrong way, but yeah, it's probably the wrong way. Anyway, I think this deck is sweet, and as fate would have it, it was the most popular deck in the team event. It was twice as popular as second place, which was a tie between a lot of things. Now, team events are always weird, but this wasn't like some mixed card pool or anything. One person played Standard, one played Modern, and one played Legacy.
So if you're going to play Standard, you meant it. It wasn't like a third of a Standard deck.
Right, exactly. So there's actually a couple of cool things in the sideboard here. The Chandra's Defeat, while there's only one here, I think there's a pretty decent chance that it's time for more than one Chandra's Defeat.
Completely agree. A couple of reasons. One of them, if Mono Red is going to persist as the most popular deck, this is just an incredibly efficient answer to any red creatures of any, reasonable size. And Chandra, which is played in the strategy. But separately, if people didn't get the memo and they're going to still bring Glory, 1 mana against bringing Glory, that's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, what do you think about 3-pack of Blazing Valley in the sideboard?
Oh, it's like a Simoon, right? But it's like half the cost of a Simoon. But it also hits
sorcery.
Face. It's just creatures, right? But
it only costs 1.
Yeah, so Simoon was like a breaker back in the Fires days. It costs 2.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you want to bring this in? Against tokens? Against a bunch of opponents' 2/1s? Like, you'd bring it in the mirror, right? Like, they've got Couriers, they've got Kenras, they've got Gorgers. Those guys are all X1 creatures.
And you just really want some tempo. But I think the biggest place where you want it is, I'm not positive, but I assume that the card is, decent against Thopters and so on. I don't know, maybe not. Nah, it's probably mostly just the mirror and then any token-based strategies.
So, the way I think about it, let's say you're on the play, right? And you're Kenra in, and then they're Kenra back. I think that I'd probably be perfectly happy just to trade 1 mana for their Kenra and get in again. But that it's obviously great if they go Courier Kenra and you're on the draw. And you're just all right, take 4, take 3, or whatever, and then
part of the thing the thing I think is kind of interesting about it is that it's slightly teched out, because this isn't the exact. I mean, it's similar, but it's not the exact same as what everybody else played. For instance, if you check out Jim Davis's second place list, he's actually got 4 Village Messenger in addition to 4 Falkenrath Gorger, 4 Beaumont Courier, and then his burn package being 4 Shock and 4 Incendiary Flow. And then if you just look throughout, and obviously he also has the Kenra, but if you just look at some of the red decks in other places, Travis Ryder's classic winning list.
Well, let's
sure.
Dwell on Jim's deck for a second. First of all, I played against a lot of Village Messengers on Magic Online this week. I think that's a card that could be gaining in popularity. But I love Incendiary Flow. So Jim did not play the Scrap Heap Scrounger himself, but Incendiary Flow is a good card against that. I played a fair amount of Primal Druids this week, and Incendiary Flow is great against Primal Druid, right? So if you're going to play a green ramp deck, Primal Druid is actually one of the cards that you might want to draw against Mono Red aggro, because it helps to slow down their beatdown and advances your board. But Incendiary Flow can mess that card up because of the exile. Same with anything that has to do with the graveyard.
Like other people's Earthshaker Kenra.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but also stuff like Prized Amalgam, right? Like,
Prized Amalgam's a big one. I would not be caught without 4 incendiary flows in a mono red deck these days.
So I think that's a really great differentiation between Jim's deck and the boss's deck. But separate from that, he's got main deck Handwear Garrison. So, much more committed to the Handwear Garrison than the boss was. But Jim has like some pretty fancy sideboard creatures, right? Akum Firebird and Glorybringer, like we talked about, a couple of Glorybringers in the sideboard. But he's got Blazing Volley. He's got a fair. So I was really like, not being able to pair the Handwear Garrison combo. It irks me a little when I see a card like Seagate Wreckage in the sideboard.
I think you're still just underestimating.
I'm overestimating how good it is.
No, I'm saying I think you're underestimating how good lands that actually do anything are. The land that gives something haste.
When all the creatures have haste.
Dude, Seagate Wreckage draws extra cards, man.
Yeah, I've played a Seagate Wreckage.
So actually, Jim's deck is very conceptually similar. I mean, if there's anything else you want to hit here, but I figured we could look at him as a package because Jim Davis's deck is so similar to Travis Ryder's classic winning list. The primary difference between all the way down to the Akum Firebirds and Glorybringers and the board and everything, all the way except the biggest differentiation is that Travis Ryder has 2 Reckless Bushwhackers instead of those garrisons, and then he's got 4 Cartouche of Zeal.
Cartouche of Zeal is the real deal. I think that card is going to be substantially staple in Standard. I played a game this weekend, or I'm a genius. I'm totally like taking this game back. I'm behind. He's got 3 guys. He can't kill me. I'm looking at my, I land in Ulamog, take out 2 of his stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this back. I'm gonna win from nil. And he's just like, Cartouche of Zeal kill you. I'm like, oh well. I think this card is going to be really popular.
Interesting.
Well, Travis Ryder's deck's only got 21 lands. He's got a really low curve. I think that Cartouche just goes straight in this because it pushes. It pushes where you want a deck like this to push. And the size that it gives to a small creature is actually not inconsistent, not just the ability to get past a blocker.
Well, plus, once you start stacking all this stuff up, Earthshaker Kenra, On-Crop Crasher, Cartouche of Zeal, this is a lot of clear the blockers out of the way.
Yeah, nobody's blocking. Not like they ever would, but nobody's blocking.
So, no question, Mono Red, one of the big deck of the weekend. But there's a different deck in the top 8 that's my favorite deck at the top of this particular event.
May I guess?
Are you talking about for the Classic or for the team tournament?
I was going to say the Classic.
Of course.
Is it the white-blue God-Pharaoh's Gift deck?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
So
Andrew Lucas with 7th place. Go ahead.
God-Pharaoh's Gift is a 7 casting cost artifact, and it has the following text. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. It gains haste until end of turn. So it costs 7 mana, but if this card is in play and you've got creatures in your graveyard, it's a
Debtors Knell, but it has haste in terms of you using it, and also it has haste in terms of the thing is attacking. Now, it makes some 4/4s, but that can frequently be upside. So you're Debtors Knelling every turn with haste, starting immediately.
So, I mean, it's really powerful once it comes online, right? Like,
incredibly powerful.
If you've got any creatures in your graveyard,
it's much more powerful, for instance, than Debtors Knell. And that was actually like a very frequent role player in Standard.
I mean, Debtors Knell was like
a defining card to block. Yeah,
it was a big deal in Standard. But this deck is like really heavily optimized around getting God-Pharaoh's gift into play, even though there's only 3 copies. For example, he also has 4 copies of Gate to the Afterlife. Gate to the Afterlife is a 3 casting cost artifact that helps you get God-Pharaoh's gift. And he's got 4 copies of Refurbish, which is a sorcery that helps you get artifacts from your graveyard back into play.
So Gate to the Afterlife, you can put it out as just an artifact that costs 3, and now whenever any of your non-token creatures die, you gain a life and loot. So that's sweet, right? Like, that's already kind of sweet. People used this a little bit even before there was a thing to go get. But being able to just get a little bit extra value out of some of your... I mean, that's just, it adds up. And the looting, though, is key. The looting is so good because you can discard things like a God-Pharaoh's gift that's in your hand, or a Cataclysmic Gearhulk, and then reanimate it with Refurbish. And Refurbish is obviously that 3 and a white sorcery. You can return an artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield. But the other part of Gate to the Afterlife is really interesting. By paying 2, tapping it, and sacking it, you can search your anywhere, your graveyard, your hand, your library. This isn't one of those deals where they have to play 3 God-Pharaoh's gifts in case they get stuck drawing one. They need to have there be another copy. No, it's literally just that they want to have this many, because you can search your graveyard, hand, or library, get the God-Pharaoh's gift, and put it onto the battlefield. And you can only do that when you have 6 or more creature cards in your graveyard. So the looting from Gate to the Afterlife, and then the looting from Champion of Wits, and then strategic planning just to get extra cards in the graveyard, all of that. Even Minister of Inquiries, just tapping to mill yourself. Or the Wanderer, Solium Wanderer, in order to disrupt people. But by putting early pressure on people, you can kind of force them to react. We've even got your beloved Ipnu Rivulet, 4 Ipnu Rivulets to be able to mill yourself so that you can get God-Pharaoh's gift online sooner from your Gate to the Afterlife.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really cool strategy. Well, the thing I was really impressed about when I was looking at it was he's got 4 strategic planning kind of to help just get those creatures into the graveyard to turn on the Gates of the Afterlife. But I think a lot of the heavy lifting is just relying on Champion of the Wits, right?
Yeah, I mean, Champion of Wits is the most... I mean, that card is so powerful, which we've already seen. But here we're seeing it even more, Like, it's... the ability to fuel your Refurbish Reanimator combo, the fact, because you could have either Cataclysmic Gearhulk or God-Pharaoh's gift that you're discarding, but then it also it's an awesome target to get back with God-Pharaoh's gift. Being able to draw 4 and then discard 2, and you're slamming with haste immediately. And what's more, Angel of Invention, I think, is a really important card to note. That's the 3 white, 2/1 flying vigilance lifelink. Fabricate 2. Your other creatures you control get +1/+1. So by itself, its normal 2 modes are either you can have a 4/3 flying vigilance lifelink, and then it's also antheming your other guys, right? Like, so that's something. Or alternatively, you can have a 2/1 flying vigilance lifelink, and then you also have these 2/2 servos because of the Angel Anthem, plus you're getting an Anthem in general. But what's so cool about the Angel of Invention here is that when you're powering up Champion of Wits, you play a Champion of Wits when you have an Angel on the table, and you get an extra card both ways. And, that's kind of hot just to start with. And then if you God-Pharaoh's gift to get back the Angel, it can be your choice of either a 6/6 flying vigilance lifelink haste that's antheming your other stuff, or it can be a 4/4 flying vigilance haste lifelink that's antheming your other stuff, and then you also have 2 2/2s to show for it. The fact that God-Pharaoh's gift is making your creatures much, much larger is so amazing with Angel of Invention.
Yep. This a lot of this stuff just goes together so well. I would love to see this be a kind of a lasting contributor to Standard.
Maybe. I mean, it's going to be so warping. Hopefully, it's not too lasting of a contributor to Standard.
Well, are there any things that are obviously glaringly missing here? Like,
well, there's a lot of versions of this strategy that people have been playing around lately.
Okay, fair enough.
Like, I think Jerry talked extensively about this combination as well. Like, we're both writing a little bit about the ways you can put this package into different strategies, and here we're seeing it being used even more. Like last week we saw this as a sideboard plan. Here we're seeing it be like dedicated, committed, and I think we're actually going to see people who are going even more hardcore. Plus, I think we're going to see a variety of variants that are 3 colors. I don't think you have to be doing the refurbish reanimator stuff. That's one thing you can do.
I think that's pretty powerful.
It is pretty powerful, but there's a few different ways you can do it. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this, but I think it's going to be very important to be packing cards like Crook of Condemnation or that land that does this, that does the exiling, I can't even remember, the Scourge or whatever.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, the Scavenger Grounds. So I think that this is definitely it's an important deck to play and to prepare for, Mm-hmm. What do you think of Void Winnower in the sideboard? Even though it's colorless, you can't get it back with refurbish.
It's very big, like relative to the other things that are in the deck. I think like the question I have is, how do you get it out? Right? You just have to get it out with God-Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah.
So
you make a 4/4 copy of it.
I think that like one of the things that's important about this, is a lot of the cards that can destroy God-Pharaoh's Gift are even, right? Like Dissenter's Deliverance, for example,
or a Braid.
Yeah, so that's really it's like a Lena and a Bunus. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like defending from 2 casting cost anti-artifact. That's, I think, one of the things it's doing.
Yeah, it's also making all your guys unblockable.
Well, sure.
Because remember, the tokens made from God-Pharaoh's Gift have a 0 casting cost. Everybody always thinks of Void Winnower's Meddling Mage ability. Your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana costs. 0 is even. Reminder text, And then the second ability, your opponents can't block. Oh, it can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. So their God-Pharaoh's Gift tokens can't block either. That's the main thing. Maybe not. Maybe it's just countering the Abrades.
I think that the Dissenter's Deliverance and the Abrades is a big deal, but there's probably more than one thing going on there.
So I think this deck is sweet. I think this is something that we're going to see a lot more of, and I think that there's a lot of exploration to still be done with this.
Oh, absolutely. I think
this is definitely what you were doing when you were new rivulating last week, wasn't it?
No, I was rivulating with Ulamogs actually. Hour of Promise gets deserts, and I found that there was oftentimes you could attack with an Ulamog twice, and the opponent would just chump block you. But because of the milling, if you just got a little more milling, then you would win. And I found the Rivulet to be useful for that purpose. In the context of an Hour of Promise, I can get deserts anyway.
So actually, in the vein of Hour of Promise to power out Ulamog, Patrick Paris put up a third place finish in the Classic with
green red.
Another version. This is it's a little bit similar to the green red ramp deck that we talked about last week. All the way down to the Beneath the Sands with Hour of Devastation and Kozilek's Return, but and a Braid. But the big twist here is the use of 3 Sweltering Suns in addition to the 2 Hour of Devastation and the Kozilek's Return.
So it's a fair
with more in the board.
Yeah,
2 Hour of Devastation's in the board.
But I think that if you think about when the deck is weak, right? It's weak during early developmental turns, right? And you just want to live long enough to cast your World Breakers and Ishkanahs and Ulamogs. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And then I think that's part of where it's coming from. And plus, of course, you can cycle it away. So it's never that dead.
Well, I think a big part of it is that you really want to be able to Sweltering Suns away the prized amalgams. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, you know?
Sure.
And I think part of it is that you just want to have a ton of sweepers. Like, we've already seen just how many of these fast red aggro decks there are. Well, last week, most of the ramp decks were playing like 2 Kozilek's Returns and 2 Hour of Devastations. Just having 2 sweepers that cost 3 or less is just not going to get the job done against these mono red aggro decks. So I love the use of more of that stuff. You know, a Kozilek's Return and 3 Sweltering Suns. That's pretty sweet.
Yep.
What do you think of the return of Walking Ballista? 4 Walking Ballista to go alongside 3 Matter Reshaper.
Well, it serves multiple functions here, right? So, again, it can be a speed bumpish kind of card. You can just play it for 2 or 4 mana. It can block and join the opponent's.
It shoots lots of things now with all these Bomat Couriers and Earthshaker Kenras and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that you potentially have a huge amount of mana in this deck, so it can be big. But I think like its defense is the main thing.
There's also the fact that when you have 4 Hour of Promise, 1 Sanctum of Ugin goes a long way. It goes a long way, so that you can Hour of Promise, go get a Shrine of the Forsaken God and a Sanctum of Ugin, then cast just a Walking Ballista for 8 mana, and then go find your Ulamog.
That is way less contrived than it sounds. That's just the thing that would happen.
Yeah, that's a regular part of the play pattern.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it sounds a little complex is all I'm saying.
Sure. Dude, is it finally we're at that time where Crumble to Dust is just getting back in the mix?
It's literally in the mix, and this one is a one-off. That card is... I think that card's pretty good, right? It's... What was the name of the one that predated it from maybe Onslaught or something like that? It doesn't matter, right? So, but Crumble to Dust, for example, you bring it in. If you nail somebody...
I mean, dude, it goes all the way back to Saga. They've been making these cards for a long time.
You're right. I think it goes back to Saga. Like, just taking out other people's Shrine of the Forsaken Gods or something would just generate a huge advantage for you, right?
Yeah, particularly if you could do it the turn before the Hour of Promise. Because it's really rough once they go get 2 shrines, because they do still get to keep 1. So, yeah, no, I think this is... It's an interesting card to keep an eye on.
Do you think Green-Red is going to be the default ramp deck of choice coming into the Pro Tour? That's really...
I don't know. I don't know. Probably just because, like, a Braid is the best. A Braid is so absurd right now. But maybe... See, I love Incendiary Flow, too, though. I don't know, man. Incendiary Flow, being able to exile stuff so that they don't get up as high. I just think you want to be able to abrade people's Gate to the Afterlife or God-Pharaoh's Gift. To say nothing of Heart of Kirin or Cataclysmic Gearhulk or Torrential Gearhulk or whatever. And that's just the shatter part, you know?
Yeah, Abrade is amazing.
Yep. A different Abrade deck, Teamer Energy, finished 3rd on the other side, back at the Team Constructed Open. Lucas Parson. Now, this is, not totally dissimilar, Glorybringer, Energy, Splashing Blue for Rogue Refiner with the Elder Deep Fiend kind of tech we've talked about. What do you think about this as a I guess, way to take advantage? Like, how does this line up with these super fast red aggro decks?
It's got the ability to meet their offense, right, at a reasonable amount of curve. Like a Long Tusk Cub, for example, can absorb a Bomat Courier, right? Like, it's only a little bit slower and come in, and then Rogue Refiner, outstanding blocker, right, even if it's going to die, because you get a little bit of value from it. But then I think all you have to do is you have to take a couple turns, you bridge into living into your big stuff, and then you take over the game with Bristling Hydra or Glorybringer. Again, we see 3 copies of Blistering Hydra. I'm not
with the 4th in the board.
Yeah, I mean...
Again, so I don't know. I worry that... I mean, maybe the 3 Radiant Flames will be enough to help, but I just worry that this is the type of deck that, or this is the spot where it ends up looking like, well, I guess, I thought I was doing all right, but then I got on-crop crashered.
Yeah. I mean, if you're living in a world where people are playing Cartridge Zeal or on-crop crasher, I think you can't be designing your strategies defense wholly around blocking. I mean, I guess he's got some Abrades and Harness Lightnings, but I mean, he feels like he wants to block if you look at this creature configuration in the context of their mono red matchup, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue Refiner and Whirler Virtuoso are a couple of folks that are known to block. So I don't know. I worry this is like I mean, it's fine. It's like a lot of good cards, right? And it's got a good game plan. I just I would want to be super focused on tempo right now. Like, for instance, what do you think of a little bit different of a Elder Deep Fiend deck? Zan side with a 4-color monstrosity. Now, this is really a Sultai Delirium deck of sorts. Not even Delirium. This is like, it's the whole Haunted Dead, Prized Amalgam stuff with Champion of Wits. But then he's got 4 Kozilek's returns for a 4th color. And this is a deck that also has 3 Yahenni's expertise. So he's going pretty hard on the sweeper front.
So what do you think about the delirium aspect of this deck? The Vessel of Nascency, the Grapple of the Past, to some degree, the Collective Brutality. Is this all just to make the Traverse the Uvenwald good?
Well, part of it is Prized Amalgam. What you really want are these free Haunted Deads and Prized Amalgams, right? Like, the more of that stuff...
Incidentally tossing creatures into the graveyard.
Exactly, because the thing is, you want to be able to get... like, Haunted Dead and Prized Amalgam are fantastic, right? But you got to fuel them. You got to fuel them somehow. And in addition to them being fantastic, they're fantastic cards to sacrifice to your Elder Deep Fiend, which is another great tempo play right now, you know?
Oh, I love how we just have a renaissance of Elder Deep Fiend decks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is brought on obviously by Champion of Wits, right? So Champion of Wits is...
Both Champion of Wits and the banning of Marvel.
Oh, yeah, of course. But like Champion of Wits...
Because you can't beat the guy. If you just have... If they put a Marvel in play, your Elder Deep Fiends are outclassed.
But like, he's 3 into 4 for Elder Deep Fiend, and he's doing stuff like dumping Prized Amalgam at the same time. Like, it's just everything you want in a...
Well, and dumping Kozilek's Return. Kozilek's Return is just a phenomenal card to discard to Champion of Wits when you're going to Elder Deep Fiend it away anyway. Because the Champion of Wits isn't going to die to the Kozilek's Return. You sacrificed it to your Elder Deep Fiend.
Yep.
And then getting the Kozilek's Return into the graveyard in the first place, having all these different ways to do that really takes pressure off the mana base to have to be able to produce red. And if you look, this is a deck that the only way it can produce red from its actual mana base, 1 mountain and 4 Evolving Wilds.
And the Evolving Wilds really just get a mountain, so...
Right. Well, if you ever do that, really they don't. They really go get Forest or Swamp or Island or something. You go get Mountain once in a while when you're actually going to cast Kozilek's Return. And you, of course, also have for Traverse to go look for it if you want, and once in a while Vessel might do it. But in general, you're not trying to necessarily... Like, the A plan is to get Kozilek's Return flipped over from some of these cards. You can even discard it to Champion of Wits or Collective Brutality, in addition to flipping it to Vessel or Grapple. So I think Kozilek's Return is such a great aspect to this deck at a relatively low cost. And Champion of Wits, you are absolutely right. Champion of Wits is the MVP here.
Yeah, that card is just really an archetype maker.
Dude, I love the Liliana. Liliana the Last Hope, great card anyway. I think this is going to be a good week for Liliana the Last Hope.
Yeah,
I think Liliana the Last Hope. One of my true pleasures in life is Liliana the Last Hoping a Bomat Courier when my opponent's tapped out. You know, like, I'm just like, boom.
I can see that being rewarding. I'm just wondering why it's so high up there for you right now.
Dude, value.
Fair enough. All right.
little bit different of a list, but in the Classic, some of the decks in the Classic this week were so sweet. But I really enjoyed Dustin Thornton's black-blue zombie deck that he finished 4th with. This is a different take. We've been seeing the battle back and forth between mono-black zombies and black-white zombies, but Dustin has a new style of black-blue. Now, in the past, whenever zombie decks have splashed blue, it's basically just been a prized amalgam thing, right? But this isn't even a prized amalgam deck. There's no prized amalgams.
No, he's going for real big stuff, right? Like Gisa and Giralf and the Scarab God at the top.
Right, 2 the Scarab God and 2 Gisa and Giralf, which are like the Scarab God on the cheap.
Well, so the Scarab God is basically taking the slot of Liliana's Mastery on curve, right? And
2 of them, yeah, because he's down to 2 Liliana's Masteries to make room for those 2 the Scarab Gods.
Yeah. But it serves a similar purpose, right? Like, from one perspective, it's generating a pretty big body, which is something Liliana's Mastery kind of makes a big body by making multiple smaller bodies. But then it's pumping out more and more offense over time, similar to, actually better than Liliana's Mastery would over the next X turns.
Yeah, I mean, the Scarab God is just such a powerful card. And I like the discipline. I mean, I can't speak to how good Gisa and Giralf end up being here. Obviously a lot more fragile. But I appreciate the discipline of you can't always just jam 6 5-drops in your deck, Sometimes, particularly a deck that has 4 Dark Salvations, which often you want to play as a 5.
That is a true story.
But Gisa and Giralf, the mill part is actually kind of sweet too. Outside of just the each turn you can play a zombie from your graveyard. That's all well and good, but being able to get your Giralf Colossus to be huge is kind of sweet, and then just getting more looks, more looks at Relentless Dead and more looks at Dread Wanderer. Relentless Dead loves to have some juicy targets to choose from. And if you flip over a Giralf's Colossus from it, from the mill 4, now you have like a pretty sweet alternative plan, even if they kill Gisa and Giralf.
Yep.
So I don't know. I just thought that the Scarab God was that's your god, man.
Well, I think the Scarab God gives the Zombies deck a very different dimension. One of the things that I find to be maybe not surprising, but given his performance in the previous Pro Tour, I thought black-white zombies would be more of a factor in Standard. And I think that a lot of the white cards are actually really well suited to help. There's the guy who gets bigger for each zombie, and then of course there's the one that drains everyone.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's new stuff. And the problem, of course, for black-white zombies always comes back to the mana. You got to play with so many planes.
Yeah, you got it's like 6 planes is going to be necessary.
Black-blue has the benefit of having not only more dual lands. Like here we see 10 instead of just 8, but your mana is not going to be as tapped as often. Getting to play with. Getting to play with 4 choked estuary and 4 sunken ruins is like.
Yeah, 8 of the 10 might just always come into play untapped, right? Like that's the thing.
Right, and honestly, fetid pools is still better than planes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Any other decks catch your eye? There were a variety of the usual suspects. Some Mardu, some blue-red control, some green-black energy.
No, I thought really the big story this week is just the overwhelming success of these mono-red decks. And, the thing that I'm wondering about is, like, what's going to happen, this coming week, the Pro Tour week, like, are we going to see more mono-red dominance? If so, is it going to be decks like the Boss played, decks like Jim Davis played? We're going to go back to kind of the bigger decks with Glory Bringers. And I don't know. Which one wins heads up, right? Like, those are the things that are running through my head right
Yeah. I think though that we're going to see even more evolution next week. I don't think this is one of those formats where the decks the week before, that's it. Like I don't think this nut has been cracked completely yet.
Oh no.
You know, like the between the white blue monument deck, the God-Pharaoh's gift sort of strategy, the return of Elder Deep Fiend as like several different decks linchpin, the massive influence of Champion of Wits in Elder Deep Fiend decks and otherwise, the like mono red, Nico Bolas, how big of an impact Nico Bolas has already had, blue red control because of Hour of Devastation. I mean, we're talking about a format right now where it looks like the six of the top, like most of the top strategies are just total. Like I mean, this is a very
different
animal.
Yeah, how about this, Patrick? Hour of Promise decks, right? We've seen some of these green-red ramp decks, but the green-red is like the third most interesting ramp deck to me that I could have explored, right? Maybe the fourth most interesting for Hour of Promise decks. Like there's
the Scarab got in Delirium too. Forgot about that.
Oh yeah,
as a one of target. John Pellman finished top 32 with a Sultai Delirium deck that did the whole traverse for the Scarab God thing too.
But like, isn't it? I think like a return to blue-green crush with Partha Waterveil might be a thing, right? Like,
you always think that.
Yeah, but there's like legitimate accelerators again.
Well, plus that's a deck that already was in for Elder Deep Fiend.
Yeah, so the thing
sometimes, right? Like, and so maybe you want to be. Is there any chance that you could do the crush deck with Champion of Wits? Because Champion of Wits is a little cool to crush.
That's true. I played it as a 4X Shrine 4X Ulamog deck, in part because getting 2 attacks with Ulamog with a Partha Waterveil, like even unkicked Partha Waterveil, is typically game, right? So that's you just like all these different things that are high end that are really powerful. But that's one of the best ways to approach ramp, I think, because you get to play with Spring to Mind versus the cycling one. Like Spring to Mind is like such a huge upgrade, not just because it has the back end inspiration, but because when you cast it on turn 3, you're putting both a sorcery and an instant in your graveyard, which puts you that much closer for Traverse the Uvenwald. You're compressing the number of types going into you're I guess expanding the number of types going into your graveyard with a smaller number of cards, and like that's pretty relevant.
And you're wanting to Hour of Promise into all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, like you can. So look, you can just go curve like Spring to Mind on turn 3. That's goes from 3 to 4. Play your land on turn 4, so you have 5. Then you can go Hour of Promise, and then immediately on turn 5 just land Ulamog, right? Or you can, it depends which lands you had naturally, etc. But you could easily have like 2 zombies and an Ulamog on turn 5.
Is there any chance that you? I don't know. Is there any chance that you would want to be? God, can't even think of it now. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But there's not just blue green. There's like Bant decks that have also Spring to Mind. But on top of that, what about there's a green white. I think Ruin in Their Wake is a card that maybe should get played in Standard that we haven't even thought about playing in a long, long time. Like if you have Evolving Wilds and Traverse the Uvenwald, you have an 8-pack of ways to get to a single Wastes in your deck. Which really increases the likelihood that you'll be able to have it on turn 2 for Ruin in Their Wake. But if you're the deck with Ruin in Their Wake and it works, and you're playing against the deck that has Spring to Mind or other 3 casting cost accelerators, you're just way ahead. Separately, if you're accelerating on turn 2 instead of turn 3, how much better do you get against red decks, right? Like just sitting back and getting your butt kicked by their hasters is no way to win, and just getting your deck a little bit faster is very useful. And if you're playing green white, which I think that Ruin in Their Wake is most conducive to green white versus green blue or green red, etc. Like what if your turn 3 play is like a Gisela, maybe they're just knock it out of the sky, but I think that's
Dude, Giselle's a little sweet with Champion of Wits, incidentally.
It is.
I do recall now what I was going to ask was if you thought that there's any chance you could use Nissa, Steward of the Elements, in your blue-green sort of Park the Water Veil style deck.
Yeah, I didn't put Nissa in mine, but I think that there's a version that has Nissa and Reason to Believe. I think that those two cards go really well together, and then obviously they go well together also with Ulamog. But I didn't put any of those cards in my version. But,
sure.
Yeah, like Nissa, Steward of Elements and Reason to Believe are like best friends.
Yeah. Is there any chance that did you try Dune Diviner at all?
I did not.
I assume that it's not right, but I mean I don't know.
The card that is super streaky for me is Primal Druid. That card is like outstanding 25% of the time, and then does nothing 75% of the time. But I still play. Like it literally has no text a lot of the time. Where like if you're playing against like blue-red control or something, they have no way to interact with it unless they just like send their fumarole into it, which is just doing you a favor. So,
I still want. Yeah, no, it seems like it's going to be hit or miss, and miss more often than hit. But I still can't get over Vizier of the Anointed, man. I mean, maybe it's just wrong because it's just like worse at doing the God-Pharaoh's gift stuff. But Vizier of the Anointed, being able to go get your choice of Vizier of Many Faces or Champion of Wits or the Honored Hydra. I don't know. There's some cool stuff that Vizier of the Anointed makes possible. I don't know, man. I know that it looks silly, but like when you play it, it's like it's a 2/4, and then if you like, for instance, put Honored Hydra in your graveyard, then it's like you drew a card, and that card was a 4-mana 6/6.
Yep.
But if your Vizier of the Anointed lives for you to cast that 4-mana 6/6, you also draw a card. And then not only so that's a 3-for-1 already, and then your Vizier of the Anointed is in play and makes it so that you're just drawing an extra card every time you Eternalize or Embalm.
I think that could be very powerful, but I also think that it's the kind of strategy that you put into like kind of a middle of the road deck, and it becomes powerful against a certain segment of decks.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I don't think you want that to be the A plan.
Yeah, like it's not good though, but it could be great as Plan B, or Plan
C. I just meant that like you can do it with a relatively tight package. You could, if you just put like one Honored Hydra, you might already have one Vizier in your deck anyway, and you already have lots of Champion of Wits. If you just have one Honored Hydra and like some number of Vizier of the Anointed, that's a whole plan. And you could even potentially have it be a sideboard plan.
I mean, I just think Honored Hydra Champion of Wits is like awesome. Like
right.
I played against an opponent who just goes third turn Champion of Wits, discard 2 Hydras, and he's just like flashback. And I mean that's respect, man. His deck just came together the way it was supposed to.
And that's another spot where Unsummon gets its money. Unsummon is such a great tempo play.
I know where you're coming from.
Here, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to nimble obstructionist all these people who are sacrificing their gate to the afterlife, thinking they're going to go get a God-Pharaoh's gift. All these people who are eternalizing their Honored Hydra. All these people who are doing all these different activated or triggered abilities.
Just
nimble obstructionist.
On the subject of nimble obstructionist, just you gotta watch your life total, I think, in a different way than you had to watch your life total 2 months ago. That, life totals have always mattered in Magic, etc. But like, we're talking about, some really big plays here. How important is it to be tactical? Nimble obstructionist changes the math in the matchups where it appears, right? Like if you think about like a largely blue deck, or you think about Grixis, those aren't necessarily decks that have so much offense. But you could be, just as an example, on 10, and then you like do some big stabilizing play that doesn't happen to block flyers, and the opponent can go nimble obstructionist, untap, get you for 3 bolus, kill you, right? And that I think is a real thing.
Right, you might only be half dead and then be all dead in one hit.
You're just straight dead because Obstructionist set up Bolus. And, obviously Bolus is part of that, but Obstructionist, I think, is... that card is the real deal, too.
I think this weekend, the Pro Tour, the card to watch is Nimble Obstructionist.
It's a great card. All right. I can't wait. I mean, and from the perspective of the folks listening, they probably don't have to wait.
Time travel is weird.
Yep. We're Top Level Podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us and for sharing us everywhere on liking us, sharing us, doing all that whole thing on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Michael J's just personal address, which can be found if you just take the first letter of the second sentence.
Well, no, if you want to find my personal address, just go to iTunes. Just go to iTunes, find us there, and the way that you get my personal address is by leaving a very nice review and a 5-star rating. And then my personal address appears out of nowhere. It's like Magic the Gathering. Also on Patreon. So
I don't think the trick works on Patreon the same way, but it's actually something that we appreciate even more so that we can help bring even more magic.
That is true, Patrick. You speak truth as usual. And this week we'd like to thank Tom Stanton from Patreon. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Much love.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to go watch the Pro Tour.
Have a good time. Have a good night. And GL to Team Top Level, to the Pantheon, to the million different shades of CFB.
Oh, wait. I have to shout something out. You put this there. Pantheon, man. I woke up on Sunday morning this past weekend, and I looked at Twitter, and was it really William Baby Huey Jensen against John Finkel in the top 4 of a Grand Prix?
Of course. I love it.
It really was, right? And then Johnny, obviously Huey ended up winning the Grand Prix, but Johnny worked Huey so bad in game 1.
I don't know anything about that.
With River Hoopu. I'm specifically speaking about River Hoopu. I think that card might
River Hoopu?
Yeah. River Hoopu.
I never heard it pronounced.
How do you say it?
It.
How do you say this creature?
Dude, I don't know. Is it a hoopo?
Hoopo? I don't know how you say it. So
I'm sure that it's a real animal too. So
I just want to talk about that card just for a second.
Yeah.
We just already did the goodbye signups and everything, but that card is a 1/3 creature. If we're looking at a universe where people are swinging in with 2/1 creatures, might want to have a 1/3 because it can serve multiple purposes. It can be a roadblock for beaters, but also great against control, also gains life, but there's a real subtle thing that makes it really, really great, especially as a sideboard card. 3 toughness isn't just good against 2/1 attackers, it's great against magma sprays. So if control decks leave magma spray in against potentially sideboarded tireless trackers, for example, it blanks them. And it's so subtle, and it comes in under counterspells, especially if you're on the play.
Could be kind of sweet. I just think Huey winning back-to-back is the definition of sweet, though.
I mean, Huey is... What are you going to say about the guy? He's been the best player in the world more than once, right?
All I know is that, the whole, you ask, who's on John's list, who's on Kai's list?
Yeah. Yes, Huey's on John's list.
Yeah, I mean...
you mean the other guy in the Peach Garden Oath? Oh, him?
So anyway, thank you, everybody. Good luck, everybody. And I can't wait.
Same. All right. Night, Patrick.
See you next week.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind. Trapped in a vault with nothing but time. Parents and my friends were the key to find. Magic gave me purpose and drive. The game, the love, it kept me alive. Visions of better weather, light